everybody, welcome to Seriously Read a Book. My name is John, and today we are going to continue reading Goosebumps Most Wanted. Here comes the Shaggedy by R.L. Stine. This is a spooky one. Today we're going to read chapters 5 through 8. You ready? Okay, here we go. Chapter 5. I've been texting Marcy, Kelly said. She can't believe that all the grades are in one room. I can't believe it either, Shawn said. I'm sitting next to a first grader. Am I supposed to wipe his nose and sound out the words in his baby book to him? Kelly sighed. I'm stuck in a swamp school with a bunch of hicks, and Marcy is going to a Taylor Swift concert at Madison Square Garden tonight. They were heading to lunch, which was in the next building. Kelly could smell the food as she pulled open the door and followed Shawn in. It actually smelled a lot like the cafeteria back at PS 87. Kelly saw a kitchen. Do any of y'all go to PS 87 in New York City? Let me know in the comments. That'd be awesome. Kelly saw a kitchen and food counter along one side. Wooden picnic tables filled the rest of the room. She and Shawn grabbed a couple of ham sandwiches and bags of chips and turned with their trays to survey the room. The tables were filled with kids laughing and eating, voices ringing off the wooden walls and low ceiling. It doesn't matter where we sit, Kelly said. We don't know anybody. The only two places appeared to be across the table from Zeke. He had a big glop of something on his plate that might have been mashed potatoes and gravy. A drip of gravy had slid onto his chin. He slurped down the milk from a small milk carton, then opened another. Hey Zeke, how's it going? Kelly said, trying to be cheerful. He burped. Kelly and Shawn pulled out chairs and sat down. Shawn began tearing the saran wrap off his sandwich. Kelly texted Marcy, Lunch with my little bro. Thrills, huh? Question mark. She realized Zeke was staring at her phone. You have your own phone? He said, wiping his hands on the legs of his shorts. Can I see it? He grabbed it out of her hand. Hey! Kelly reached to take it back. Zeke raised it to his face, studying the screen. What are all these little pictures? He said. You don't have a phone? Kelly said. Your parents won't let you? Zeke poked the screen several times. No, my family never had a phone. My dad says he doesn't know anyone he wants to talk to. Well, how do you get texts or emails? Shawn asked him. How do you check Instagram? He handed the phone back to Kelly. He wiped gravy off the screen. Instagram? Why would I want that? He shook a fist at Shawn. I have Insta-fist. Shawn laughed, but he stopped quickly when he saw Zeke's expression change. Zeke's blue eyes flashed angrily. Don't laugh at me. Just because we're not New Yorkers doesn't mean we're stupid. Whoa. No way, Shawn said. I didn't mean. Zeke stared at him for another long moment, then returned to his potatoes and gravy. Kelly tried her sandwich, but it was dry and tasted like cardboard. Kids at the next table were tossing an apple up to the ceiling, catching it, tossing it again. They were laughing and shoving each other, trying to make the catcher miss. She knew the conversation with Zeke wasn't going well. She decided to try one more time. You know, Shawn and I aren't snobs, but it's been hard for us to leave our school and our friends and move so far away. Zeke swallowed a lump of gravy. Then why don't you go back? You don't belong here. He leaned over the table, challenging her. When is the last time you went fishing? Kelly choked down a dry chunk of ham. Fishing? Like in a boat? Never. Zeke tossed his head back and laughed. See what I mean? Never been fishing? And you think you're so great? I never said it was great, Kelly snapped back. Zeke had a big smirk on his face. Have you ever been in a boat? A sailboat, Kelly answered. My cousin goes sailing off Montauk on Long Island. Sailboat? Zeke laughed again, shaking his head. You don't belong here. Really. You'll die in this swamp. Shawn made a gulping sound. He had been silent this whole time, but Zeke's words appeared to wake him up. He peered across the table at Zeke. Did you really see the Shaggedy? Shawn asked. Did you really see a swamp monster, or were you just trying to scare us? Zeke's smile faded. You should be scared, he said, lowering his voice. You saw those footprints outside? They weren't fake. I wasn't lying. Decker and I saw the Shaggedy. We saw it close up. Shawn's mouth dropped open. He raised his hands to the side of his face. He started to talk, but no sound came out. Kelly put a hand on his shoulder. Don't listen to him, Shawn. You've got to stop scaring yourself. You heard what Miss Rawls said about those footprints. Zeke bent over and fumbled through his backpack. He pulled up a sheet of white paper. Check this out. He turned it around so Kelly and Shawn could see it. Kelly squinted at it. A pencil drawing of a tall, hulking, half-human monster with slime dripping off its body. I drew this last week, Zeke said. Kelly laughed. Who is that? Cookie Monster from Sesame Street? Zeke growled. He slammed the drawing onto the table, his freckled cheeks darkening to red. I warned you before, he muttered through gritted teeth. Don't laugh at me. Kelly felt a chill roll down her back. He's unbalanced, she thought. This guy is seriously weird. A kid bumped up behind Zeke. His exact double. Same round baby face, same blue eyes and short light blonde hair, dressed in a red and white Florida State Seminoles t-shirt and red shorts that came down below his knees. Hey, this is my brother Decker, Zeke said. Decker scraped the chair next to Zeke away from the table and dropped down heavily beside his twin. Yo, he muttered. This is Kelly and that's Shawn, Zeke said, motioning with his head. They're from New York. He's okay, but she makes a lot of jokes. Decker studied Kelly. We don't think jokes are funny, he said. His voice was deeper than Zeke's. He was asking about the Shaggedy, Zeke said, waving his drawing in Shawn's direction. You think that's a joke too? Decker demanded. Decker just sat down and he's already looking for a fight, Kelly thought. The Shaggedy isn't funny, Decker said, staring angrily at Kelly. When he gets restless and climbs out of the swamp like last night, he can do very bad things. He wrecks everything in sight and he hurts people. Sounds like a comic book I read, Kelly said. Zeke tossed his spoon at her. She dodged to the side. It missed and clattered to the floor. You should listen to Decker and me, he said. New Yorkers don't know everything. Decker laughed as if his brother had made a great joke. He had the same cold laugh as Zeke. They don't know anything, Zeke told Decker. They've never even been fishing. Seriously? Decker said, shaking his head. He leaned over and pulled up a tin can from his backpack. It was about the size of a coffee can. He reached 2 fingers into the can and pulled up a long, fat, purple worm. Ever see one of these? He dangled the worm in front of Kelly's face. It glistened in the bright cafeteria light. Whoa, it's huge, Shawn exclaimed. Kelly narrowed her eyes at Decker. Are you kidding me? You brought a worm to school? He nodded. It's bait. He swung it at her. One end of the worm slapped her forehead. It felt warm and wet. Kelly snapped her head back. She wiped worm slime from her skin. Decker and Zeke both laughed. Then Decker swung the worm back toward his face. He lowered it slowly and bit a big chunk off one end. Kelly felt her stomach lurch. Shawn groaned. She watched Decker chew the worm. Ew! Why'd you do that? She gasped. He swallowed the worm piece. You want a taste? He shot his hand forward and smeared the worm over Kelly's face, rubbing it into her forehead and cheeks. Then the 2 brothers jumped up and trotted away, bumping knuckles and laughing the same laugh. Nice guys, Shawn muttered. I don't think I'm going to like it here, Kelly said. Chapter 6. Kelly was perched on the arm of the living room couch. phone pressed to her ear, deep in conversation with Marcy in New York, when she heard Shawn scream. Her dad jumped up from behind his laptop on the dining room table. "Tarantula!" Shawn screamed. "Help! It's got me!" Tarantula? The phone slid out of Kelly's hand and bounced onto the couch cushion. She saw Shawn across the room frantically swatting at the front of his t-shirt. "It's going to bite! It's going to bite!" he screamed. Dad darted across the narrow, cluttered room and took Shawn's t-shirt in both hands. He gazed down at the round, dark creature stuck in the fabric. "Help me! Help me!" Shawn wouldn't stop screaming, his face twisted in panic. "Not a tarantula," their dad reported calmly. "Calm? Shawn, calm down. It's a common American house spider." Shawn made a choking sound. "What's the difference? It's as big as a tarantula." Their dad plucked the spider off the shirt and carried it out the front door. "There are no tarantulas down here," he said when he returned. "That's one thing you don't have to worry about." Shawn rolled his eyes. He was still breathing hard. He brushed off the front of his t-shirt with both hands. "This place is crawling with insects." "Why don't you start an insect diary, Shawn?" their dad suggested. "Keep a list and a description of all the insects you find." "Oh, for sure, Dad. I'll get right on that." Their father turned his gaze on Kelly, standing beside the couch about to redial Marcy. "You two should take advantage of living near a swamp," he told them. "It's a unique opportunity most kids will never have." Kelly frowned at him. "Poor kids," she said. "Maybe someone would like to take my place." Their dad mopped sweat off his forehead with one hand. "I'm ignoring that, Kelly. This year will definitely help you get over your fear of insects, Shawn." "What about my fear of never seeing my friends again?" Kelly said. "That's why I bought you both cell phones, so you can talk to your friends whenever you want. There's even Wi-Fi down here." He pulled off his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "You promised to give it a try and not complain." "That was before I saw this place," Shawn said. "Besides, when I promised, I had my fingers crossed." "Dad," Kelly started, "you have to admit that dragging us to a swamp," he didn't let her finish, "is a fabulous opportunity, and for me, it's a chance to solve the mysteries of the most mysterious swamp in Florida." Kelly dropped onto the couch with a sigh. "I don't want to complain, Dad, really, but you should see our school. It's so small. It looks like someone's garage." "And the kids are totally weird," Shawn added. "These two kids, Zeke and Decker, they're like from a horror movie." "They're these blonde twins with scary blue eyes," Kelly said. "One of them ate a fat worm at lunch." Her dad chuckled. "That's good protein." "Not funny, Dad," Shawn said. "They keep trying to scare us. They say they've seen this swamp monster called the Shaggedy." Their dad blinked. Kelly could see him suddenly alert, thinking hard. "The Shaggedy," he muttered. "I've heard that legend." "You've heard about it?" Shawn asked. "You mean it's real?" "Of course it's not real. I said it's a legend. It's a story that got passed down, that's all." "But we saw the monster's footprints," Shawn said, "behind the school." "You're New Yorkers, remember? You don't fall for stuff like that. Zeke and Decker made fun of us because we're New Yorkers and we've never gone fishing," Kelly said. Their father clapped his hands together. "Let's take care of that right now. Go to your rooms and change. I'm going to take you fishing on the river." Kelly squinted at him. "Seriously?" "Let's do it," he said, trying to force them to be enthusiastic. "Let's go. You'll enjoy it, and after today, those guys at school won't be able to accuse you of never doing it." Kelly and Shawn hurried to their rooms. The rooms faced each other in the back of the little house. Kelly still hadn't gotten used to how small her room was. It was the size of her closet in their apartment back home. "I don't know what to wear," Shawn called from across the hall. "What's wrong with what I'm wearing? Shorts and a t-shirt." "Put on a long-sleeve shirt," Dad called, "to protect from insects." "Insects? What kind of insects?" Shawn shouted. Dad laughed. "Don't worry about it. Just change your shirt. I've got plenty of bug spray." Shawn changed his shirt and made his way back to the living room. His father was holding a fishing rod in each hand. "Where did you get those?" Shawn asked. "Bought them, and I bought a rowboat too." He was about to say something else, but Kelly came bursting into the room, eyes wide, shouting, "Look at this! Hey!" Look at this! She shoved her yellow backpack toward her dad's face. I don't believe this. Look what someone wrote. All three of them stared at the blood-red words crudely scrawled on the front of the backpack. Here comes the Shaggedy. Chapter 7. One of your new friends is playing jokes on you. Their dad chuckled. It isn't funny, Kelli insisted. It's a brand new backpack. Maybe I'll wash it out. Kelli frowned. It had to be Secret Decker trying to be scary. Shawn rubbed a finger over the scrawled red words. Are you sure it's a joke? They said they don't like jokes. What else would it be? Kelli snapped. Her little brother's dark eyes locked on hers. A warning. Kelli groaned. Stop it, Shawn. Don't tell me this dumb prank is scaring you. Shawn didn't reply. A short while later, they were in a rowboat on the narrow, winding river that curled around the swamp. Sunlight made the water sparkle. Birds chattered in the smooth-trunked trees that leaned over the shore. Welcome to the Deep Hole Swamp, their dad said. He sat on the prow with Shawn in the middle and Kelli behind Shawn. Kelli and Shawn practiced rowing while their father acted as tour guide. The fishing rods hung over the sides of the narrow boat. Is the water deep? Shawn asked, peering over the side into the brown-green water. This part of the river is very shallow, Dad replied. He tugged his Mets baseball cap lower to shield his eyes from the sun. You could climb out and walk, Shawn. Okay, I will, he said quickly. I don't like boats. Their dad shook his head. I know sometime soon I'm going to find something you do like. Right now the list of don't likes is very long. I don't like lists either, Shawn said, finally smiling. All three of them laughed. See that flowering plant over there, their dad said, pointing? That's very rare. It's called a scrub buckwheat. It's endangered. I'm excited to see it here. And what's that little plant with the white flowers over there? Kelli asked. Living in an apartment in New York, she'd always wanted to plant some kind of garden, but of course she didn't have a backyard where she could do it. That's called snakeroot, he said. It's very rare, too. Some people think it's good for snakebite. Shawn's eyes jumped at the sound of the word snakebite. He opened his mouth to say something but changed his mind. You two aren't rowing together. You have to get in a rhythm, their father said. Shadows from the trees on shore danced over the water. A light breeze didn't keep the air from becoming sticky and hot. A cyclone of tiny black insects buzzed to their left, thousands of them, rising high over the swamp. Kelli tilted her head up, enjoying the warmth of the sun on her face. The river grew wider and the current suddenly felt strong. This is where the water starts to get deep, their father told them. And over there is the outlet to the ocean. The river flows right into the Atlantic? Kelli asked. Actually, the ocean flows into the river, he answered. The river fills with salt water at that point. Ocean creatures find themselves swimming here. So it gets really deep? Shawn asked, peering over the side again. Rippling shadows from the water reflected on his face. Their dad nodded. No one knows how deep it is because no one has ever reached the bottom. Some say it may be the deepest hole on Earth. And that's why they call it Deep Hole Swamp, Kelli said. Duh, Shawn said. We have a whole year, Dad said. I hope to explore every part of the swamp and then write a book about it. Shawn stopped rowing. And maybe you'll write about swamp monsters? He asked. At least you're not obsessed, Kelli said to her brother, rolling her eyes. You're going to hear a lot of crazy stories about this swamp, their dad said, squinting into the distance. The rowboat slid through wide whirlpools, white against the green water. Some say the hole leads down to a chamber deep in the earth where monsters and strange creatures live, he continued. Since no one has been able to dive to the bottom or send a camera that deep, no one can say for sure if anything at all can live down there. Shawn stared down into the rippling water. So, maybe monsters, he started. His dad quickly cut him off. Stories. All stories made up. He said, I'll say it again and again. You're not going to see any monsters down here. If Kelli hadn't shown you that stupid movie, you wouldn't even be thinking about monsters. Kelli rolled her eyes again. I thought we were going fishing. I didn't know we were just going to get a lecture. It took a while to get the fishing rods prepared. They fumbled in the tackle box, trying to figure out which hooks to use and which bait to put on the hooks. "Ow!" Kelli said as her dad jammed a worm onto her hook. "Doesn't that hurt the worm?" "Probably doesn't feel too good," her dad replied. They practiced casting the line into the water. The small boat drifted with the current. The sun lowered, sending jagged sparkles of red over the flat waters. "It's really pretty here," Kelli thought. "You can't see colors like this in New York." And then she uttered a shout as something tugged the line. "Ha!" She raised the fishing rod, grabbed the reel. Something was pulling the line fast. "What do I do? What do I do?" Kelli cried. "Reel it in," her dad said. "Hold the line tight. Pull back, reel it in." Kelli tried to follow his instructions, but whatever had grabbed her line was big and strong. The rowboat rocked from side to side as she struggled with the line. Shawn made a whimpering sound. He put down his fishing rod and grabbed the sides of the boat, holding on tightly as it rocked and bobbed. The boat rocked harder as Kelli worked the line. The rod flew up and down, starting to arch, and appeared about to bend in half as the creature fought to stay free. "You're doing it!" her father yelled. "Keep working! You're bringing it in!" "It's something big." Kelli gave a hard yank. She screamed as an enormous creature came flying up from the water, black and shiny. It quivered and flapped as it swung on the end of her line. She cried out as the creature swung toward her and hit her face with a loud slap. The big glistening thing spread itself over Kelli's face. Her hands flew up. The rod fell from her hands into the river. She stood in the rocking boat grabbing at it. The boat heaved hard and Kelli sailed over the side. She sent up a high wave as she splashed face down into the green-brown water. Sinking below the surface, the soupy, thick water rising over her. The water so thick and warm, the creature wrapping itself around her head. "I can't breathe," she realized. It's smothering me. Chapter 8. As Kelli struggled in the water, the creature pressed itself to her face. She could feel something pulsing inside it. Its heartbeat? Her chest felt about to explode. Strong arms gripped her under her shoulders and pulled her up. As she rose to the surface, the creature slid off her face and disappeared. A large black spot swimming smoothly, wings outspread. Her dad was standing in the water. He helped her lift herself into the rowboat. She sucked in breath after he hoisted himself up after her. Shawn hadn't moved. He gripped the sides of the boat so hard, his hands were white. He stared up at Kelli, his face frozen in fright. What was that?" Kelli finally managed to say. Her whole body shuddered. The sun wasn't warming her fast enough. "I'm not sure," her dad answered. He turned to Shawn. "It wasn't a swamp monster, so don't say it." "It may have been an eagle ray," their dad continued. "They are very big manta rays, but they're ocean creatures. It must have gotten lost." It tried to smother me," Kelli stammered. "I don't think so," her dad said. "I think it was as scared as you were, so it just held on to you." He hugged her. "I wish I'd brought some towels." "Well, we didn't plan to go swimming," Kelli said, shaking water from her hair. Whoa. I can still feel that thing on my face. "Thanks for jumping in, Dad. I tried to get to you as fast as I could." He hugged her again. "You were really frightened. But remember, you don't have to be afraid of all the animals here. The influx of salt water brings interesting creatures into this swamp." "Yeah. Interesting," Kelli repeated. She shivered. She gazed at Shawn. His hands still gripped the boat sides. He was trembling. "I'm as frightened as he is now," Kelli thought. "I have a very bad feeling about this swamp. We have to get out of here." Art class, Kelli discovered, was held in a trailer outside the school grounds. There were 8 sixth graders in her new school, and they all took art at the same time. Since the school had only 3 teachers, Miss Rawls was also the art teacher. Kelli found everyone sitting around a long picnic table that stretched the length of the room. "There's a spot for you, Kelli," Miss Rawls said, pointing to an empty space on the bench across from Zeke and Decker. "Today is free drawing day. Draw whatever comes into your head." "I've never had class in a trailer before," Kelli said, squeezing to the end of the bench. "It's not a trailer. It's a mobile home," Miss Rawls said. "Cozy, right?" Kelly dropped her backpack on the floor, then leaned over the table to see what Zeke and his twin were drawing. Monsters, naturally. Miss Rawls had her eyes on their sketches, too. She shook her head. You two are obsessed. What is your problem? Our problem is, Decker and I saw the Shaggedy, Zeke answered, not looking up from his paper. We saw it close up. No lie. Zeke, please, Miss Rawls started, but Zeke was determined to tell his story. It climbed out of the swamp one night, he said. Kelly laughed. She quickly realized she was the only one. The other kids had stopped drawing and were gazing solemnly at Zeke. Even Miss Rawls had stopped grinning at him. It climbed out of the swamp, dripping wet. Zeke continued, speaking in a low voice just above a whisper. Decker and I watched it stagger around for a bit. Then it stomped down the main path and came up to our neighbor's house across the road. It left huge wet footprints on the ground, Decker added. It pounded on our neighbor's front door, Zeke said. It pounded so hard the whole house shook and the door cracked. But no one was home, Decker said, twirling his black marker between his fingers. The monster let out a roar, like it was angry. It was like a tiger's roar. It picked up a garbage can and heaved it into the trees. Then I guess it gave up. Zeke nodded. Decker and I followed it back to the swamp. We stayed way back. We didn't want the huge creature to see us. We were way scared. But we followed it to the river, and we watched it swim away. We watched it till it disappeared under the water, Decker said. Silence for a long moment. Then Miss Rawls said, Good story, guys. You should save it for creative writing class. Zeke raised his right hand. I didn't make it up. I swear it's true. Miss Rawls turned to Kelly. Don't listen to these two storytellers. I told you they're monster crazy, and they love scaring new students. It should be a movie, Kelly said. Zeke and Decker both grinned. They seemed to like that answer. Kelly took a charcoal pencil and began to sketch. She wanted to draw a rowboat on the river. She drew tall vines along the river's edge, and she put a dark spot in the water beside the boat, the mysterious sea creature she had pulled from the water. She loved to draw. When she was younger, she liked to draw sketches of her neighborhood in New York, and she liked to draw dogs. She made up a lot of crazy breeds. One year, she took a summer art course, and her instructor said she had talent. Now, she couldn't get the river to look right. It was so hard to draw water. The class ended before she could finish. She handed her sketch to Miss Rawls and followed the others out of the trailer. It was a steamy, hot afternoon, the sun high in the sky. The air was heavy and wet. Kelly always felt as if she were walking underwater here. She crossed the grass to the main school building and ducked inside. The bright sunlight lingered in her eyes. When they finally adjusted to the dimmer light, she saw her brother at the end of the hall. He was standing stiffly at his locker. The locker door was open. Something about the way he was standing, not moving at all, made Kelly realize something was wrong. Hey, Shawn, she called to him as she trotted toward him. She stopped a few feet away. Shawn, what happened? Who did this? She stared at the dark pond of water spread on the floor in front of the locker. Then she saw that the inside of the locker was wet too, with bits of weeds clinging to the locker walls. Shawn stared at her wide-eyed, his mouth hanging open. Shawn, are you okay? She cried. When I opened my locker, he said finally in a trembling voice. When I opened my locker, everything was wet. My books. Kelly, look at my books. They're all soaked. Oh, wow, Kelly murmured, shaking her head. Wow. And look, Shawn said, look at this. He shoved a folded up sheet of paper into her hand. This was stuffed in my locker. What is it? Kelly asked. She unfolded the sheet of paper and saw that it was a note. She blinked as she read the words scribbled in red ink. The Shaggedy wants you next, Shawn. And that's the end of part 2 of Goosebumps Most Wanted, Here Comes the Shaggedy by R.L. Stine. If you like this scary story, please like, subscribe, click the bell, and if you loved it, please share it with someone you love to scare. My name's John. This is Seriously Read a Book. See you next time.